Get full episodes of The Damage Report as a podcast on iTunes and Android, and you can watch the live show every weekday on YouTube TV. Here in America, we're dealing with the aftermath of a week of political violence and obviously very invested with what's going to happen in the midterms. But meanwhile, in nature. I was really interested to find out which animal Brett was going to choose for that. So meanwhile in nature, we're running out of animals. Humanity has wiped out 60% of mammals, birds, fish, and reptiles since 1970, leading the world's foremost experts to warn that the annihilation of wildlife is now an emergency that threatens civilization itself. And if it seems weird that a story like 60% of all of the animals in the world going away over the course of one person's lifetime, if it seems like that should be covered more, I am right there with you. So we have a quote, by the way, from Executive Director of Science and Conservation at the World Wildlife Fund that says, "We are sleepwalking towards the edge of a cliff. If there was a 60% decline in the human population, that would be the equivalent of emptying North America, South America, Africa, Europe, China, and Oceania. That is the scale of what we have done." And I want to propose sort of a hypothetical. What if we said we wanted to kill 60% of all of the animals in the world? You'd probably say that's impossible. How could we possibly do that? But we have found a way. And the way that we have found is by continuing to expand our population, moving into areas that used to be wildlife and forest and all of that, burning down these areas, affecting the climate, affecting pollution levels, and basically making the world inhospitable to a number of species that have previously thrived for literally hundreds of millions, if not billions of years. That is what we have been able to achieve as a species. And we have done it while no one is even acknowledging that we're doing this. If I had started this story saying that we've wiped out 10%, you'd probably be a little bit scared. But it is far, far worse than that. And the numbers in some particular areas are even worse. Freshwater habitats have collapsed around the world by 83%. South and Central American populations of animals have declined by 89%. They are literally running out of animals in significant chunks of the world, and we're acting like nothing is happening. So that's what's happening in nature. Meanwhile in China. China's having some issues with animals as well. They're now legalizing the use of certain animal parts that had previously been illegal. The Chinese government has legalized the use of endangered tiger and rhino products for medical purposes, a move wildlife activists say will be a setback to efforts to protect the increasingly endangered animals. And so specifically here, to be fair, it is only farmed animals because there is actually an industry that farms rhinos and tigers, thousands of them, to harvest body parts for dubious cures for a variety of illnesses that you'll be shocked to find out don't actually work. In 2010, the World Federation of Chinese Medicine Societies issued a statement saying there was no evidence for the claimed medical benefits of tiger bone. No proof of medical benefits from rhino horn have been found either. But that has not stopped a trade in it from continuing even when it was illegal. And now that it has been legalized, it is likely to become even more common, even though these animals around the world have become rarer and rarer. If you can actually get an industry going that is able to breed them, I think there are more productive uses for those animals, like letting them live, especially as animals around the world are going away. So that is what's happening in China. Meanwhile in Nepal. Wow, that is a beautiful country. Nepal is having issues of their own, and the solution that they've come up with dealing with that is banning pornography, something we occasionally talk about here in the US as well. So this has to do with sexual assault, which is becoming much more common. In the past 5 years in Nepal, sexual assault rates have gone up by 60%. And this is their solution. They've banned porn and added harsh fines or prison sentences for internet service providers who refuse to comply. Now, if it seems to you like that is not actually a solution to the problem, especially considering the fact that the vast majority of sexual assaults aren't really about sex at all, they're about power, and they are violent crimes, you're probably right. Critics of the ban question whether there was any link between pornography and Nepal's sexual assault numbers, and if it was even possible to prevent people from accessing the websites with the provision of firewall evading software. And by the way, in recent history, this hasn't worked in the past. Nepal actually had a sort of softer ban on pornography just a few years ago, and eventually the government stopped enforcing it because they found that it was in fact unenforceable. And along the way, rates of sexual assault have continued to go up. So probably not a solution. I would look at some more cultural factors, toxic masculinity, things like that are leading to these sorts of rises, not just in Nepal, but in a number of countries around the world. So that is what's going on in Nepal. Meanwhile, in Turkey. Did you know that a journalist was killed in Turkey? I know that we reported on it a lot, but everybody seems to have forgotten it for some reason, which seems bizarre to me considering it was one of the main stories like a week and a half ago. Jamal Khashoggi was murdered and dismembered in Turkey by a team of assassins sent from the Saudi government. I'm not saying this because it's news. I'm saying this because how is this not news still? Yes, we have serious problems. There was the synagogue shooting, the midterms are coming up, we've had all those bombs and everything, but this guy was killed and our country has still done absolutely nothing. Jamal was a Washington Post reporter. He was a US resident. He was one of us. Certainly, we should care regardless whether he'd been a Turkish citizen or a Saudi citizen or whoever, but he was one of our reporters and he was brutally murdered in Turkey just a couple of weeks ago, and our government does not give a damn. There have been no consequences whatsoever. The arms deals continue to go forward for Saudi Arabia. We are still assisting them in their war in Yemen, regardless of the human and moral cost there. And we have simply moved on, not just as a society, but even the media that should be more attentive to issues like this. Yes, we have to pay attention to all of the news going on around America and around the world. That's why we're doing this segment. But we cannot forget about big stories like this just because shiny new objects come up. Jamal Khashoggi was brutally murdered. There needs to be consequences. Thank you very much for watching this clip from The Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.